So perhaps we can get started. So hello everyone and welcome to our open house meeting to launch the Dawes Road Branch and Community Hub construction project. We are so excited to welcome you and so thankful you chose to join us this evening to kick off this conversation. My name is Pam Saliba. I'm an area manager at TPL responsible for the Dawes Road Branch and will be your MC for the evening. But before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge that the Toronto Public Library is situated on Indigenous land and Dish with One Spoon territory. This is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Toronto Public Library gratefully acknowledges these Indigenous nations for their guardianship of this land. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. And before we jump into the agenda, we have a couple of quick notes to share. Please remain on mute during presentations and consider turning off your video to preserve bandwidth and reduce lag if not presenting. We'll have an opportunity to take questions at the end of the presentation, so please feel free to place your questions or comments in the chat. And unfortunately, due to technical issues with the recent software upgrade, closed captioning isn't available for this meeting, but will be available at all our future consultations. In terms of tonight's schedule, we'll start with opening remarks, then discuss some background on the project before you hear from city, library staff, and architects on the many exciting opportunities for Dawes Road. One thing we'd like to emphasize is that this public consultation is only the beginning of our conversation, and there will be many other opportunities for us to connect and hear from you all. Now I'd like to introduce Hosseini Ara, the library's Director of Branch Operations and Customer Experience, to kick things off.
Good evening, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and I'm very excited that we're launching this project. For those who've been kind of keeping up with the status of this project, it has been in the works for some time now, with efforts from many individuals who've been involved throughout the years. And yes, unfortunately, it's been years. But we are thrilled to get this project launched and to share with you what is about to kind of take off, and also hear from you in terms of your ideas and what you'd like to see. And so we're going to take this opportunity tonight to get some feedback. And as Pam said, this is actually just the start of the feedback and consultation process. There's extensive consultation that we do throughout all our projects, and we'll involve as many people as we can and as want to be involved. So just briefly, I'm not going to introduce every single person that's here. I'll just ask that individuals who are doing the presentations at the time when they take over the screen, just do a brief introduction of themselves. We do have a fairly large team, but I will say that we do have a team from the library, so from Toronto Public Library. We've got local branch supervisors and staff and managers and others who are involved in the project. We've got our partners in this project from Social Development, Finance, and Administration, and they will be speaking with you about, so this is, I should just mention up front, this project is not just a library rebuild. It also is an inclusion of a community hub. And so Social Development, Finance, and Administration staff are here to talk to you about that, and also to engage in the consultation process related to understanding what the community is looking for from both the library and a community hub. We also have the design team. Very excited to be working with some world-class architects. We've got Perkins+Will, who've also partnered with Smoke Architecture, and they'll be doing a presentation for you later on tonight to talk to you about some of the projects they've done, the vision of what they're bringing to the table in terms of the vision for this facility, and also to hear the feedback so that it can be incorporated into the process. The other thing I want to do is recognize both the current councillor, Councillor Bradford, who will be speaking shortly, but also the former councillor who's been integral in moving this project along throughout the years, Janet Davis, and I believe she is on the call as well and listening, so welcome, Janet. And so without further ado, I'd actually, so we can keep this moving, because the important part is for you to hear about the actual project and then to get your feedback. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce your Ward 19 councillor, Councillor Bradford for Beaches East York. So I'm just going to hand the microphone, so to speak, over to Councillor Bradford to say some opening remarks.
Thanks for the handoff, Mo, and hi everyone. Brad Bradford here, your city councillor for beautiful Beaches East York, and it is fantastic to be here with our friends at Toronto Public Library and SDFA and all the city staff on the line to make this meeting happen. It's finally happening, and so it's actually really exciting to be here tonight. Dawes Road Library is a cornerstone of our community, and this renovation is certainly much needed. As Mo just alluded, it's been a long time coming, but it is going to be spectacular, and I think for sure it is going to be worth the wait. The project team, the architects that they have lined up, the Indigenous placemaking component, all of these things are going to deliver a project that our community can be proud of, and certainly something that the residents and the neighborhood very much deserve. And we know that libraries can be transformational. They can absolutely be transformational in people's lives, and that's what we're delivering here. As Mo acknowledged, and I saw Pam nodding her head as well, former councillor Janet Davis, we wouldn't be here tonight without her and her involvement. She's on the line tonight, but certainly as her time as a councillor, she helped advance this project forward, and she's been working with me personally in the year since to help make this thing happen. And my personal gratitude over to you, Janet, on the other side of the call here, because you've offered a lot of advice and insights into where we've been and where we need to go, and kind of the steps that we're going to take tonight and in the subsequent months wouldn't have happened without you. So kudos to Janet Davis, champion of East York and champion of the Dawes Road Library. One of the very exciting things that you're going to hear about from the project team tonight is that we have worked together to bring you a new community hub. Securing this community hub will make sure that this new building isn't just a library, but it is in fact also a hub where we can offer a lot of other really valuable programs and services to the neighborhood, which is fantastic. So initially the project called for 2,000 square feet to be allocated for community hub space. We sharpened our pencil, so to speak, went back to budget a few months back, and we've been able to actually increase that space nearly 4 times to 8,000 square feet. That stuff does not just happen. That is our project team, city staff, working very, very hard to deliver this for our community here in East York. We're very grateful, and we are going to make the most of this opportunity to redevelop this city land. I think with a large community space like this, we are taking an important step in doing that. So this is a critical juncture in the process. I think that we have a sketch of the proposal, but now is the opportunity and time for you to give us your input, your feedback, get your fingerprints all over this project, make it yours, make it the community, and start coloring it in and let the team know what matters most to you, what matters most to our community, and how this project is going to be successful with your input. My gratitude for you for being involved in that. And then the last thing I want to do is just thank all of the staff involved, everyone at Toronto Public Library, Mo, Pam, Susan, Gale, Kachana, all the way to our city librarian, Vickery Bowles, and also the team at SDFA, John, Inania, and again, right to the top, the assistance from Denise Campbell. Everyone should learn more about these folks. They are fantastic civil servants who work very, very hard in our community, doing very important work. And they've made this tonight happen. So thanks to everyone who's on the line. Appreciate your time, your talent, your energy. If you haven't signed up for my newsletter on my website, bradbradford.ca, it's a great way to stay involved find out about what's going on in the neighborhood. I put that out every Friday at around 6 o'clock. It's a good little read. And again, just have to run a little bit. I have a simultaneous meeting. We're doing the supportive housing meeting right now simultaneously. So I'm kind of on two screens, but you do have my staff, Diana Gonzalez, on the line, who many of you have know and have been helped personally by, to make sure that we're capturing your feedback. And I will be back once that meeting concludes. I'll be back to this meeting, so I'll be with you a little bit later as well. Thanks again. Back over to you, Mo. Again, my gratitude to everyone. This is a fantastic project.
Thank you, Councillor Bradford, and really appreciate your support throughout this project, and look forward to working with you and your team and the community. And of course, as mentioned, our former Councillor Janet Davis, who's been, again, integral in moving this project forward. So just want to give you a little bit of project scope, some background for those who may not be familiar with all the details, and I'll keep it short just again, because the most important part is for you to hear from our architects and our partner SDFA, as well as our library staff, but also to get your feedback. So just to say that what we're actually looking to do here is replace quite an old and unfortunately at this point in a bit of a sad state in terms of upkeep. It's about 6,500 square feet, and as you're familiar with the site, if you are, basically the site at this point is going to be totally torn down and replaced by a beautiful new 20,000 square foot library plus a 5,500 square foot community hub. I think, unfortunately, Councillor said 8,000 square foot, but what I'll say is 5,500 square foot, and there's some additional outdoor, we're looking to do some outdoor rooftop gardens. So we'll throw that in with the 5,500, and you know, you're getting a beautiful library and community hub, to say the least. And I know people are going to ask, so just to say that the entire project is approximately $20 million worth of construction and build out, and basically preparing the space, which includes both the community hub space as well as the library space. And as mentioned earlier, we have partnered with, and for some time, with our partners and colleagues at SDFA, and I'll have John Smith provide some, along with some of his staff, provide some details as to what that community hub is going to look like, but also to, again, gather your feedback as to what you're looking for to go into this facility. And the other thing I want to mention, and I don't know if too many are aware of this, but Dawes Road project, there's actually a few really special things about the Dawes Road project. One is that the mayor, the City of Toronto mayor, John Tory, has an urban design initiative, and Dawes Road was chosen as one of the projects to be featured in that. And just to briefly mention what that's about, is it's really about featuring city facilities that encourage forward-thinking design, are inspirational or beautiful, as well as functional and cost-effective, and that really create the civic pride and are transformational, as Councillor Bradford said, for the community. So this is your library. This is, you know, we're doing this for this community, and we don't do cookie cutter. So every library that we renovate or expand or rebuild is built based on what the community is looking for. So we really are looking for your feedback and input, and in the end, we'll turn back to you a beautiful library that you can enjoy for years and years to come. The other special thing with this particular branch and facility is that we're working with towards the City of Toronto's Green Standard, which requests that we, you know, look to achieve net zero energy, and there'll be a little bit more details as to what that means. But essentially, what we're looking to do, and we have to do a bit of a feasibility to ensure that it can be achieved on this specific site. If we can't fully achieve right to the, you know, the net zero carbon, we'll do as much as we can to ensure that the building is as environmentally friendly and has the smallest environmental footprint that we can achieve at this site. So that's another exciting thing. And finally, I do want to mention, as was mentioned earlier, We really are. This is one of our sites that we have a strong connection to the Indigenous history of. I mean, we do on all our facilities and all our properties, but this site specifically, because of its co-location with Taylor Creek and the Indigenous history, means a lot to us in terms of ensuring that we're respecting and honoring the Indigenous history here. And so, as a part of Toronto Public Library's response to the Truth and Reconciliation report, we are endeavoring, and we're working very closely and ensuring that we do consultation, and we do some very important Indigenous placemaking. So I mentioned earlier, we've got Perkins+Will and Smoke Architecture. Smoke Architects are Indigenous architects owned and operated, and we're very excited to be working with Smoke Architecture and having them be a part of this project, and then working with the community, with all the Indigenous communities, to get the feedback and the input we need to ensure that we're doing this in a respectful, authentic way. So there will be Indigenous design, authentic Indigenous design incorporated into, and also programming incorporated into this library. So we're really excited and looking forward to ensuring that we do that in a respectful way. So without further ado, I think maybe I'll stop there with the background. The most exciting part is to come, and what I'm going to do is hand it over to John Smith with SDFA, who will talk about the community hub component, and then after that we'll have our library staff talk about the library component, and then we'll have the design team provide their thoughts. So over to you, John.
Thank you, Mo. Pleasure to be here tonight. I am, from the intro, from your intro, from the Councillor Bradford's intro, I know that the community has been waiting for a while, and I can say nothing but this is a fantastic opportunity to really grow and develop the library space, and of course add on a community space that will be a great addition and asset to the community. So social development, finance, administration, we don't have a big profile, but we work with everybody. We work with other city divisions. We are supporting equitable outcomes across the communities. And as you see on the slide here, we have the community development community and the tower and community development unit and the tower and neighborhood revitalization unit that are working in tandem on the Dawes Road Hub project. And I'd just like to mention that there are a number of staff that we've kind of pulled together that will be assisting in this work all the way through. Bettina Takacs, our Partnership Opportunities Legacy Fund project manager. We'll hear more about the Pole Fund, as we call it. Deara Hughes, our community development worker. Edna Ali is coming in as our community development officer for our present work. We are presently responding to the emergency situation with the pandemic, and we are working with community partners across this larger area. Tricia Clark from our Tower and Neighborhood Revitalization Unit, and Tower and Neighborhood Revitalization has been working with a lot of the towers in the Dawes Road community and in communities across the city. And we're learning a lot from our Tower and Neighborhood Revitalization Unit on the implication of beautification projects, as well as looking at how we can support updating of current housing in partnership with buildings. And lastly, Rebecca Stevens, who is our current community hub coordinator at 1652 Keel. Next slide, please. So that's a little picture of 1652 Keel. It is the only city managed hub in the city of Toronto. It is a pilot for us. We've been managing, SDFA has been managing the space since 2017. And we have been a part of a number of upgrades to the space and continual development of the space, as well as partnerships and our work with our community service providers. So we're taking our learnings from there. We're taking our learnings from you may have heard of the Rexdale Hub, taking our learnings from just up the street, another hub project, which is the Thorncliffe Park Hub, and really learning about the dynamic addition that a community hub space can have for residents and community partners and grassroots groups. As well, we know that each community hub is a unique space with a unique history. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge that, the Dawes Road Hub project is here and is now as a result of the advocacy, as the support of a number of community partners, residents, and other community members. And of course, it can't be stated enough, the work of your former councillor, Janet Davis, and handing it off to your current councillor. And this opportunity came about because the city, through funding from what we call a Partnership Opportunities Legacy Fund, which is basically resources that are focused on what we call small capital projects, could be hub spaces, could be activity rooms in the parts of the city, neighborhood improvement areas, and Taylor Massey has been identified as a neighborhood improvement area that wouldn't regularly get that assistance and that investment. And so, as Councillor Bradford has stated, we started with around 2,000 square feet, and we're able to get additional support to upgrade that space, and so it will be on the third floor. And the root of this is a partnership that we have between not only SDFA as a city division, but with Toronto Public Library, but also with the community, and developing, this is an opportunity to further develop that partnership and further have a space that accommodates the needs of the community. Next slide, please. So just to give a little background of some of the work that has happened in terms of consultations, again, with support of Councillor Davis, around 300 residents participated in consultations that happened around service planning in 2018. This information is important as a little bit of background in terms of consultation, but we know that we're on a pathway to sort of look at and get current and get the current input, and also project into the future of the type of space and the type of services. And so we know that when it came to the surveys that we had, that the priorities that were outlined were employment opportunities, anti-violence programs, anti-racism programs, and some of the top priorities selected from in-person consultations were community safety, education and recreation engagement programs, safe community engagement spaces. So the hub being, we want it to be that space that everybody is invited and welcome to and can participate in, as well as take advantage of skill-based certification or social recreation type of services. As well, we know that social activities, intergenerational activities, seniors activities, complementary youth activities. I know there's going to be a youth space in the hub, as well as creating a welcoming space for newcomers to the community as well. Next slide. So we're building on a consultation and on the ideas from residents, and we want to expand on that. And we want to focus on three main areas: the facility space and the operations, the partnerships and programs, and of course, the community engagement and leadership. Next slide, please. So with a facility space, it's really important that we get a sense, and as we go through this consultation process, of the type of space that's required that will support diverse community activities. As well, what are the resources? So we need an operation budget. Our intention is to have free access to this space, and we need to have an approach and the resources available so that the community, that we reduce as much barriers as possible for community residents, grassroots groups to participate, and for service providers to provide services there, as well as possibly other city services that are looking to partner with SDFA, as we have in the past on training areas like first aid, CPR, on coaching training. The space is going to provide that kind of platform so we can have dynamic use of the space. And of course, updated technical equipment. So we know that, as our society is moving and changing, of course, spaces have to be accessible. We're also looking at, not only those spaces, but appropriate storage of the type of equipment that's necessary, that's accessible to everyone. Next slide, please. A really important part of this consultation is how we build partnerships with our Indigenous as well as other ethnocultural communities. How we focus on equity. It is a main focus of the city. It is a priority, as we've learned through, COVID, to ensure that all voices are heard, that there's equitable access to resources within the communities. And our programs and services, we want to ensure that the hub is that type of platform. And that includes the opportunities for grassroots groups and to use the hub for events and activities. And again, to reduce, barriers, costs to that access, and actually help to support capacity development for all members of the community. And by capacity development, it's a big term used around, but I'm thinking of that. What are the, skill-based activities? What are the certifications? What are the opportunities for training and utilizing local talent, local resident leaders, and compensating them appropriately for that. And speaking of leadership, next slide, please. Number 3 is engagement and leadership. So engagement's got to be a part of not only this consultation process, but an ongoing part of the development of the hub space, implementation of the hub space, and maintenance of the hub space. And that means, again, you see some of the themes coming through here in terms of the groups, seniors groups, ethnocultural organizations, community groups. There's a rich history in the community, and we want to ensure that the hub is a reflection of that, but also respects, of course, the longstanding Indigenous history of the area. And we want to explore how that leadership translates to an ongoing practice. We're going to need to always focus on inclusion and always upgrade the services. And that may mean looking at approaches like a community advisory and how that would work and how that would help to enhance the space of the hub. And so, again, this is the end of my slides, but I have to say this is the beginning of this phase of a great opportunity. I look forward, and my team, on behalf of my team and other units in social development, finance, administration, we look forward to engaging, connecting, working in collaboration with our library partners, and walking through this process to create a really great asset for the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, John. That was very helpful. I hear an echo. Nancy's our tech support. Perfect. I think it's gone now. Hopefully that sounds a lot clearer. So again, thank you so much, John. That was very helpful. And we're also very excited to be collaborating with you and your team on the project. But before I get started with these library slides, I do want to acknowledge that we have the local library service manager on the call with us. So Craig Todd Langell is on the line, as well as our branch head, Eileen Sidmore, who has spent her entire career at Dawes Road. So that is a really incredible accomplishment. Both of them are incredibly dedicated to the branch, and we're all just so excited to launch these conversations and to be having these consultations with you. So I'm here to share some ideas and possibilities that can inspire the future design and enhance our library spaces, services, and collections. These ideas have been in place at other TPL branches across the city and may help inspire some of our ideas in the discussion. So for example, here's a photograph of our beautiful Fort York branch, which is a new build and a great example of how the library works strategically with both architects and the community to create spaces that are both beautiful and functional. And as Mo mentioned earlier, we have an opportunity with this project not only to increase the size of the branch, but to make it more accessible, more and create spaces that are more inclusive and better meet the needs of our community. Next slide, please. So creating welcoming and comfortable spaces for students and learners of all ages is another way we can positively impact the community. Dawes Road is a branch that is heavily used by students throughout the day, since many individuals rely on the library for access to internet and other resources. Maximizing individual and group spaces can address some of the needs our community members have expressed regarding space. And the COVID-19 pandemic has also altered the way we use space and will be considered throughout the design process. The project is an opportunity to address both current and evolving technological requirements for connectivity, and which can include flexible spaces with a range of uses, such as group collaboration, virtual meetings, and online learning. Next slide, please. And speaking of technology, our public access computers at Dawes Road are incredibly popular and appreciated by community members. This project is an opportunity to increase and modernize the public computing space, providing more spacious options for our customers. Our computers are a lifeline for many individuals in the community who rely on library staff and equipment to access the internet, as well as office productivity tools, printing, and scanning services. Next slide, please. Another opportunity we have with this new building is to enhance the space available for children, not only in terms of square footage, but also to add an interactive early literacy center for children aged 0 to 5. We know from customers that visit the branch, as well as from looking at demographics data, that the Dawes Road community includes many young families who rely on library staff, space, and collections to help develop their children's early literacy skills. We call these types of spaces kid stops, and they've been very popular and well loved in other branches and may be a great addition to the new space. Next slide, please. We also have an opportunity with this project to update and modernize our programming space. So when it's safe to run in-person programs again, Dawes Road will need flexible, adaptable spaces that can serve many functions for the community. Examples of such functions include community events, board meetings, group trainings, and other types of gatherings. Pictured above is also an example of outdoor programming space as well. So there are many interesting possibilities we can pursue at Dawes Road depending on what we hear from you. Next slide, please. Teens are another important group that we want to reach out to and hear from to ensure our spaces cater to their specific needs. Above is an example of a teen zone at another TPL branch, Eglinton Square. Teen zones are welcoming, inclusive spaces specially designed to allow teens to safely meet their social and intellectual developmental needs. They include relevant collections, useful information, and helpful support from library staff. These spaces intend to support teens and cultivate their interests rather than impose areas of focus on them. And this sends a strong signal that all teens are valued and welcome. Next slide, please. In addition to a teen zone, we have a special opportunity at Dawes Road to include a youth hub. Youth hubs differ from teen zones in that they are animated with programming, tech equipment, and dedicated staff with specialized training. These are drop-in, safe spaces providing access to homework help, nutritious snacks, workshops, and other youth-driven activities that contribute to positive outcomes, including digital literacy and both social and leadership skills. The technology that we include in these spaces include laptops, iPads, digital cameras, virtual reality headsets, and even DJ equipment to enhance everyone's learning opportunities. Next slide, please. We also have the opportunity to include digital innovation spaces and a fabrication studio. These are spaces that exist to provide chances for people from all walks of life and from all ages to experience and learn to use technology that may not always be readily available due to cost or other reasons. This includes equipment and software to support 3D modeling and printing, robotics, virtual reality, coding, green screen technology, and even music recordings. So these spaces have dedicated staff who support customers and animate the space through programming and one-on-one support, and they are incredibly popular in other branches. Next slide, please. We also have an opportunity to increase the collection. The Dawes Road collection is heavily used, and it remained popular throughout the pandemic as our staff have been working hard to safely fill holes on a near continuous basis. This opportunity to expand and refresh our collection will mean that customers will have a wider range and quicker access to titles that interest them the most. Next slide, please. And a robust collection pairs particularly well with comfortable, inviting, and spacious seating options. As we know, customers love the opportunity to find a cozy spot in the library to dive into a book. And with this project, we have the opportunity to not only increase the number of seats available, but to also improve them and ensure that lounge seating takes advantage of natural light. We want to create comfortable, welcoming, clean, and modular seating areas throughout the library. So with that, I will hand things over to our architects who are going to share some more ideas and inspiration with you. I think Linda is going to kick things off. Or Andrew, sorry.
Andrew, no problem. Thanks
you,
very
Andrew.
much, Pam. Hi, my name's Andrew Frontini, and let me put my video on, please. Hi, Andrew Frontini, and I'm a lead designer with Perkins+Will on this project, and I'm really excited to be working with TPL together again. We brought together a really unique team. If I could go to the next slide, please. We really thought of this team as bringing unique attributes, and we call them superpowers, but the kind of passions and thoughts that we bring to this project. And it was our internal Perkins+Will team, but also a Lady of Smoke and her team coming together, and what we think is going to be an amazing collaboration. So we have Linda Newmeyer, who's our thoughtful project manager. We have Zaina Alali, who's our passionate sustainable design lead. And you heard Mo talk about some of the sustainability initiatives this project is going to entail, and I'll get into that in a bit more detail. We have Eladia, and she goes Oshka Bewis, which is the helper, attendant, and messenger, both for her people and all peoples, and you'll hear a bit more from her in a minute. Michael Blois, our project architect, a super prepared guy, both creative and very technically minded, doesn't let anything slip. And then there's me, Andrew Frontini, your lead designer. I'm kind of, I'm curious. I like to check things out and investigate the potential of architecture to serve communities. So we're excited about this team. If we go to the next slide, you'll see that apart from the group I just described, we have Brad Fleischer, our landscape designer. And we think landscape is going to be really important to this project. Even though we don't have much room on the site, we're going to be exploring the potential of landscapes on the roof and in the sky. We have Martha Del Junco, our interior design lead, and Gail Meeks, who leads construction administration, and then a collection of sub-consultants that we've worked with together on many projects, and they're really our trusted collaborators. They've got lots of library experience, and they're really leaders in thoughtful, sustainable design. Next slide, please. I'm going to just touch on 3 examples of Perkins+Will's library experience. Recent work, I've personally been designing libraries since I joined the firm back in 2000 and have dozens to my portfolio. They're really one of the most exciting things an architect can get to work on, because there's so much about access, democratic access to great space and resources. This is the Oak Ridges Library for the city of Newmarket that Michael worked on, completed in 2019, a beautiful heavy timber structure with stone and other natural materials. Next slide, please. This is an interesting because it's about the same size as the Dawes Road Library is going to be, and like the Dawes Road will be, it's on a couple of different levels, and it just shows how you can connect those levels with feature stairs, daylight, and this beautiful wood structure. Next slide, please. This is a project that's very dear to my heart, the Albion Library for Toronto Public Library, which was completed in 2018. And we really took, kind of a tough part of the city and turned it into what the community wanted, which is an oasis, and the idea that an architecture could be a kind of garden and bring nature back into the city. Let's go to the next slide, please. Through color, through the use of wood structure, and bringing nature through courtyards into the interior of the building. Next slide, please. And going back to 2013, the Aurelia Public Library in Market Square. And I like this project because it really speaks about the potential of a library to shape the public realm and give something back to the city beyond its programming, but outdoor programming, the enhancement of streetscapes, and the knitting into the existing context. Next slide, please. And you see in this library, we really have a large kind of community living room, which is the heart of the library. And those are some ideas we'd like to bring to the Dawes Road Library as well. Next slide, please. When we put together the team for this, we knew that TPL was really interested in having an Indigenous design consultant on the team, and we felt we needed more than a consultant, that we needed a collaborator. And so our approach to having a lady and her team on board is really about a co-authorship. So I'm going to pass it over to Lady to speak a bit about her experience and team.
Thanks, Andrew. Could we get the next slide, please? So we recognize that the host voices from Dawes Road Library are really what's going to resonate through the whole process of design and on into the future. So to give voice to those people that make up Dawes Road is really what's going to give life to the library. Next slide, please. This is one example of the work that we've done, how that voice can really resonate and become embedded in a space. So this is Centennial College's A building expansion. We're working with Dialogue on this in Scarborough, Ontario. It's an Ellis Dawn project, and we've worked very hard with their Indigenous working group. Some of the narratives here I want to bring your attention to is where the building comes down to the ground at that northwest corner, that prominent corner of the building, tells a story about the narratives that have existed in this territory since time immemorial. So the agreements for sharing space are recorded in wampum, which are living documents, and we honor this with a basalt formation at the foot of the building. Growing out of that are the grandparent teachings, the Mishomis and Nokomis teachings that are represented with those 7 columns that have the footprints of our animal teachers along with the colors associated with each of those teachings. This is just one example of the rich narratives that we can start to draw into the space as we listen to you, the community members, tell us your stories. Next slide, please. This is another example of a community space we worked on at Henvey Inlet. So Henvey Inlet is a community in change. They've just built a very successful wind farm, and we wanted to use some of the wood left over from the clearing for the wind farm on the facade as solar shading devices. So that's what you see, these wing-like forms that come out of the building representing the story of Thunderbird, which was really important to this community. And we come up with these stories by a really careful process of liaising and listening to community members. Next slide, please. So I'll hand it back to Andrew to share our initial project visions.
Certainly. So one of the things that TPL does when they're selecting an architect is to ask them to think about their vision for what the library could be. And we always want to be careful that to remind everyone that we haven't met with the community yet. And this is kind of an exercise that they ask us to do to test our creativity and how in tune we are with TPL's mandate and vision. So these are some examples of the thoughts we had. Those thoughts are going to grow and develop as we begin to talk with you and the extended community in more detail. Lady, if you want to talk a bit about this observation that you had, I thought it was really interesting, and it really inspired our approach to thinking about the library. You're muted, though.
So in Anishinaabe, culture is actually a verb. Anishinaabe is one of the languages originating in this place. And it's a verb-based language, and culture is something we build together. It's something that we do going forward in time. So we hope that some of the relationships that will kick off through the design of this library are going to play into the future programming and extend into the future, again, extending the life of that library by interconnecting many stories from the neighborhood it lives in. And next slide, please.
And we thought that the library is, because we knew it was going to be on more than one level and it was going to be interacting with the ground and spaces above the ground, that we could maybe take that idea and think of the library as a journey. And the verb would be about moving, thinking, doing, interacting, and this space really be a culture builder. Next slide. Awkward pause as the lady and Andrew try to decide.
Who's going to talk about the layered history? Sorry, Andrew.
Yeah.
You asked me to speak to this.
Yeah,
so,
it's fine.
So, yeah, so we have this history at Dawes Road neighborhood that extends back to time immemorial, and you know, the people who live and continue to live in this space have so much to bring forward that's been actually hidden from mainstream society. And what better place to bring that into the light than a library? So that layered history is something we're going to acknowledge and celebrate in the architecture of the space, and also in the ways that we accommodate different activities within the library. Next slide, please.
And we see different ways of using the site over time. And on the left is the Haudenosaunee Longhouse, or replica of one, a structure that was really built from the landscape, in the landscape, and when the community moved on, it would return to the landscape. And then on the right, you see how in the 19th century, the creek and the creek bed and surrounding landscapes were used for quarry. And it's kind of a contrasting relationship to nature and to how we view natural resources. Are they something that we're in sync with and that we sustain and live with over time? Or are they something that we exploit in a kind of linear fashion, whose, as we now know, whose ultimate end is a kind of environmental degradation and an environmental crisis? So we're interested in that shift in attitudes and how we can get back to a much more synchronized and respectful relationship with the creek and all of the landscapes that support this area. And we think that architecture can remind us of the interconnectedness of living things, and our proximity to Taylor Creek and the programming of the library and the teachings it offers can help us think that way. Next slide, please. Before we came to talk with TPL about our interest in the library, we toured around the site, and actually Michael, our project architect, lives in this neighborhood, so took some great photos. And it was a kind of a study in the sort of contrast that we see. We see high-rise, multi-unit residential and single-family homes. We see kind of improvised, do-it-yourself aesthetic as people address issues of sustainability here in this solar collector and water collector. And then we see the actual context of the library itself. In the background are the condominiums that are actually on top of the existing branch, and the context that we see of those kind of intimate bungalows and really a nicely scaled street. And we have to think about how our library as a three-story building will fit into that context. Next slide, please. And also that connection, pedestrian connection, to the natural systems of Toronto. And what's interesting about Toronto is it's not like Vancouver where you look out the window and there's the mountains, there's nature, you see the ocean. Here, nature is kind of underground. It's in ravines, it's in river valleys, and you kind of have to go down into it. But once you get there, it's this kind of very wonderful and rich environment. You can lose the city completely. So we know that Taylor Creek Park is actually a kind of refuge for many people. It's also a way of getting around the neighborhood, moving between neighborhoods. And it's a place full of history. The Canada's first peoples really enjoyed this rich, fecund, natural resource that sustained them for millennia. When we look at the context, you see this is a kind of map of the region, and you see where Dawes Road Library is going to sit, and what a 5-minute walk looks like, and what a 10-minute walk looks like. And we see that a 5-minute walk gets us to the park, 10-minute walk gets us deep into the ravine and across the ravine. So we're interested in being part of a network of public spaces that all connect together, and green spaces that allow the neighborhood, or actually 3 neighborhoods, to come together. Next slide, please. So here you see the library. There's George Webster Park, there's Donora Park, and our entry into Taylor Creek. And then between there's the school. And we know that kids are coming out of school. They're moving through the neighborhood, maybe using the ravine to get to the housing on the other side. And the library becomes a kind of pivotal point, a kind of crossroads where all of these public spaces connect, and the service offerings of both the library and the community hub are going to be really important. And we want to make sure that the design kind of invites people in on their way as they navigate the neighborhood to engage with the programs of both the hub and the library. Next, please. We did some research on the demographics, and John spoke quite a bit about this. We know that this is a community of learners. There's a real growth in young families and children, and the median number of children in this neighborhood is much higher than the average. We also know that there's a high period of immigration between 2011 and 2016, and so this kind of younger demographic, new Canadians, those are people who really use libraries, and they have a vital connection to libraries and community hubs because they benefit from the resources, they benefit from the kind of hands-on learning that a library provides. So we have to keep that in mind as we begin to design and program the library, this focus on really what we're calling a community of learners and early learners. Lydia, maybe if you want to, I'll punt it over to you.
Okay, yes. The narratives that we talked about of this neighborhood and the layered history might be one way to express that might be in our use of materials. So of course, materiality in a library is so important because it's a space that you like to spend time in. You like to pause and gather in this space, and what the materials say to you in the space is really important. So we're thinking that maybe one way of doing that is perhaps contrasting wood with which has been used as a building material for millennia, with sort of some of the more modern building materials, glass, concrete, things like that, and bringing those together into a layered narrative. Next slide, please. Though that bentwood structure is a really interesting phenomenon that was used regionally here for many structures and continues to be used traditionally for those learning spaces especially. So this is one example, which is the Longhouse. Another thing that we noticed about this particular architectural precedent is the fact that we have beautiful light from above. We have sort of almost like a modular series of bays where people can gather in smaller groups. And then we also have a tiered sequence of spaces. So we have a vertical stacking of activities looking over a common shared zone. Next slide, please. So this has inspired the overall strategy. We'll hand it over to Andrew.
Oh, we're so polite. We're being very polite here today. It's only in Canada where you interrupt someone and they graciously pass the ball to you. We're sort of, well, this is a kind of model of how our design process has worked up to date and is going to continue to, which is a kind of constant back and forth conversation. And what we're looking forward to is the community being the kind of additional character in that narrative or that dialogue that where we'll really start to pass ideas back and forth. As a lady was saying earlier, we're looking forward to the opportunity of bringing building technologies together, the idea of a bent wood structure, of more contemporary concrete, glass, and masonry architecture, those coming together and maybe framing a series of platforms, different levels where different activities in the library happen, and celebrating the fact that we have to be on more than one floor, and using that to get a view out over the neighborhood, to have green spaces, maybe a teaching garden on the roof of the library overlooking the neighborhood and Taylor Creek, as well as gathering spaces at the ground. So everywhere there's a circle, we were kind of just very diagrammatically indicating the idea of a gathering space. It can happen outside on the ground floor, it can happen inside in a great hall, it can happen on the roof of the library, and making outdoor education and learning part of our reality, as we all learned this year. It's a one way we've been able to keep engaging is to do it outside, and I think that's a habit that's going to stick, hopefully. Next slide, please. And then these early diagrams just talk about a journey from the city overlooking the land and to the sky, and whether this architecture can connect land to sky and make us more aware of our context, the history of this neighborhood, and of the natural surroundings that are so nearby, but when you're down at street level, you don't sense them. This is an advantage to get back in touch with them, or an opportunity rather. Slide, please. We have a really ambitious agenda for sustainability on this project, and that's both mandated by the City of Toronto's Green Standard, TPL's commitment to sustainability, and our own practice vision, both that's with smoke architecture and their kind of reverence for the land, and then Perkins+Will with, you know, kind of very strong commitment to sustainable design. Next slide, please. We take a holistic approach to sustainable design. We call it living design, because it's really about design philosophy that incorporates so many different approaches, but it all points towards supporting life on this planet, human life, and then the life of all other species. And because we know that we can't continue with all living beings being interconnected and all living systems interconnected. And if we overlook that, it's at our own peril. So the lenses that we bring are one of inclusion, all people, but then all species being considered in this design. Resilience, the idea that this building that we create together will be able to withstand climate extremes, weather extremes, but also health stresses or economic stresses. It's there to support a community and help them through tough times. And I think the inclusion of the community hub is just a fantastic synergy. The synergy between hub and library is really going to be about creating a resilient community that can kind of take roots and grow here. Traditional lenses of sustainability, which look at water efficiency, energy efficiency, and sustainable traffic and movement patterns. The idea of regeneration, that we can make a site greener than we found it. Take an urban site that's completely developed, reintroduce gardens, reintroduce environments for pollinators and migratory birds to engage with this building. And then well-being, a building that has good air, good light, good ergonomics, and that makes us feel good physically when we're in it, so that we can learn and engage and be at our best. So those are the kind of 5 lenses that we call living design. Next slide, please. Mo talked about a feasibility study that we're going to do for a net zero carbon building. And what that means is we're talking about a building that in its operation, in its heating and cooling, will not have CO2 emissions. That's what a zero carbon building is. And so it's a kind of a series of investigations we're going to look at. And this is what we call the sliding scale. And we sort of start with a regular building. It's code compliant, and it uses about 350 kilowatt hours per meter squared. And that's meeting our Sustainable Building 10 building code compliance. And then we look at, well, if we can integrate future renewables into our planning, can we think about having maybe geothermal, wind, or solar renewable energy sources to offset fossil fuel heating? The next step is to go to net zero energy, where we look at renewables which will offset the amount of carbon that's released by the fossil fuels we're using. A net zero carbon will look at starting to reduce the amount of fossil fuel and then get it to the point where we can purchase carbon offsets, which is an investment in zero carbon energy sources, perhaps a wind farm or a hydroelectric dam or a photovoltaic array. So we're investing or paying an offset to cancel out the carbon footprint that our building has. But if we're going to move towards zero carbon, which is the last line from the bottom, the step would be to electrify everything, not use any fossil fuels in the operation of the building, only use electricity. And then the last step is really a zero carbon and zero energy, where you would have mitigated all carbon footprint, and then you are actually not using any energy that isn't produced on site through renewables. So we're going to look at these various stages or various tiers of carbon reduction and move towards a zero carbon analysis. Find out how would we do it, what's it going to cost, and is it feasible on this site? And that's going to be one of the earliest things we do in our design exercise. Next slide, please. Another way to look at this is how efficient and well we can design the building right from the get-go. Is it well insulated? Does it have a good window ratio so that we have enough daylight, but we're not offering the inefficiencies that windows bring to the thermal loads, whether it's heating or cooling? And we want to try and use these techniques, which we call passive design, and really, in pre-contact civilizations, all architecture was passive design. You never would orient your building so that it would get very hot or that would have cold wind blowing in the front door. The relationship between the building and the site and its use were always primary drivers. So that's our first step. How much can we reduce our energy loads through how we organize the building? The next step, the third line, is to switch to electricity and then have very efficient mechanical systems so that we're using as little energy as possible, and the energy that we do use, we're using only electric sources. The next step would be it says smart and optimized operations, and that's really looking to, digital technology, smart systems, computerized building automation systems, which help us reduce energy loads. When we leave at night and there's no one in the building, are the lights on or are they off? Is the heat running full throttle or does it turn down? So getting that technology to work for us. And then you see that baseline there, that dotted line, that's the line that we're going to try and shoot for to reduce our energy to the amount that can be compensated by on-site renewables. And Zaina did a little drawing up here. Look at the roof area on the upper right of Dawes Road, that red rectangle. We did a quick calculation that if we covered that with photovoltaic electric panels, solar panels, we could generate 279,936 kilowatt hours per year. So if we can design a building that doesn't use any more than that, then we can use the renewable energy on the roof to have a net zero energy and a net zero carbon building. So these are the kind of exercises we're going to be going through. Sounds very technical, but it's really where we have to go at this stage in history to ensure that our buildings, our civilization is going to be sustainable. And architecture and buildings and building activities on this planet are responsible for 25% of all greenhouse gases. So if we can reduce that, we can make a big difference in the big picture. Next slide, rather. Lady, over to you.
So all this is to say that we honor this pre-existing treaty. So this Dish with One Spoon agreement predated European contact by a fair bit. It was reached between Anishinaabeg and Haudenosaunee peoples who were sharing territory. And so they came up with this way of expressing their shared dedication to maintaining the health of their environments and thus their own societies by taking only what you need from the dish, which is the shared habitats that we live in and support us, keeping that dish clean and leaving some for others. So that's the commitment we want to continue to honor in the present day and into the future. Next slide, please. One of the ways we're going to do that is excellent stakeholder engagements. So I'll pass it back to Andrew. Or is it still me? Still me? All right. So we want to make sure that we invite key voices to this process. So we've already gone through a few very preliminary meetings to identify who we're going to invite in targeted engagements. But of course, we're also going to run large-scale community engagement with anyone from the neighborhood who wants to participate. So there was a study done, Innovation 7 completed one with TPL in 2018, which was an Indigenous engagement plan. So we're honoring that work that's been done already and extending it further. So our goal is to establish those long-term relationships that are really going to feed into a rich programming experience going forward into the future for this library, and making the spaces that are going to welcome and accommodate and encourage those activities that are going to enrich the space. Next slide, please. So this inclusive engagement will include things like neighborhood walks, and I think Andrew has a story to tell about this slide. Oh, you're on mute, Andrew.
There we go. This was an engagement that we did for another City of Toronto facility, the Galleria Mall site, Wallace Emerson Community Center. And this was a new community being built into an existing neighborhood at Dupont and Dufferin. And there was a real anxiety, I would say, on the part of the existing neighborhood about what was coming. And we're the designers of the community center. Michael and I worked on this, integrating into a new park that was going to be the developer's contribution as they developed multi-use residential on the site. And we really walked the site with the community. We had 3 of these open house sessions, and instead of them being in a gym or a community hall, they were taking advantage of the good weather, and we walked this park together, and we heard people talk about the art in the park, the way their kids use the park, which parts of the park were safe, which presented challenges, which parts of the park they really loved. And it really informed our way of designing with our landscape architects so that it could be really specifically community responsive. And sometimes people's minds just really begin to flow when they walk through space, and they really tell you what space means to them and what the programming means to them. Next slide, please. We like to take that engagement, and this is kind of looking ahead. Once we meet and get feedback from you, we're going to move towards a project vision that's really the project vision. It's informed by the hub's needs, by the library's needs, and by the community's input. And this is an example from the Albion District Library that I referenced earlier. After the community consultation there, what we heard was that the community viewed the library as a kind of a refuge from, environmental and kind of social stresses in the neighborhood. It was a place apart, and that for them, they wanted greenery, they wanted a garden, they wanted some way to soften and green their environment and think of it. So we thought, well, that sounds like an oasis. It sounds like a garden. And the idea that a library could be a garden, and the fruit of that garden is knowledge, but it's also literally biomass and greenery. And so we created a concept called the Knowledge Garden, and that really fueled the design of the library, but it came out of and was inspired by community input. Next slide, please. So with that, we've sort of shown you who we are, what we think about the site and the potential for libraries. how we want to engage, and I think between Perkins+Will and Smoke Architecture, we want to propose that we're going to be your guides on a kind of journey, and in the end, it's going to lead you to knowledge, culture, creativity, and a strong sense of community. And I think that with the library and hub in one site in this location, there's just enormous potential. So we hand it over to you. We really look forward to your input, and we're going to try and integrate it as best we can into the design of this complex. Thank you very much. Pam, over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Andrew and Eladia. That was awesome. It was really inspiring. And I could see from the chat, which was just so active, that other folks felt the same way. So thank you. Now we get to jump into questions, which is everyone's favorite part of the presentation. And I've pulled a few from the chat from way up. And if I miss anything, Craig, who's keeping an eye on it, is going to text me, and we'll take this through as best as we can. So to start off, I think this one, maybe John, if you'd be able to jump on and help with this one. The question
Sure.
is, would there be space for community agencies to use as office space?
John, are you
So
muted?
my
John,
WebEx went in and out a little bit, but I think I
Nope.
heard the question as, would there be space for community agencies?
Correct, to use as office
yeah.
space.
Yeah. So I think right now, as we're at the beginning of the process, we're going to look at all opportunities. And it's basically how we make spaces available. The city has a policy, a community space tenancy policy. We are not looking to lease this space, but we are looking to work with community partners to have them utilize the space. And maybe that we can look at different ways of doing that to reduce costs for organizations. I'm very open to looking at how we can have the use of common spaces for offices, but the priorities of the community are going to come from this consultation process. And I think from what we've heard before, activities, having the opportunity for training, even a community kitchen are some of the key things to look at. But really open and willing to explore the idea of space usage for everything, including programming, but also including office spaces. But that has to fit within the priorities of the community.
That's great. Thank you so much, John. So another question, I'm thinking this one for Andrew and or Eladia. So open spaces between levels give space grandeur and connectivity, but that can take away from functional floor space. How do we balance this in this type of design?
Oh, great question. I mean, the answer is in the question. We balance it. And I think we look at the library square footage, the programs they want, and the nature of those programs, for example, a quiet reading room or study area or an adult reading area, those don't want to be disrupted by the noise from a children's area. So we're pretty careful and worked with a lot of librarians in a lot of different communities and know the things that really drive them nuts about architects' intentions. And so you're exactly right. We'll be extremely strategic about where we bring double height spaces, and we'll make sure that those are located really, for example, adjacent to what we call an urban living room or performance space, a space that is sort of meant to be a gathering space and lively. And we'll try and be very careful to zone quieter spaces or more focused spaces away from that. And it's 2 stories, so we'll be looking at one very carefully located opening between floors, because I think it's important. The biggest thing we want to do with that interconnection is to make sure that people know there's a second floor, people know where to go, and have that sense, and the staff can keep an eye on what's going on in the library through that interconnection. So it's a real balancing act, as I said at the outset, to kind of get that right feel of the space that's going to support the use of all the other spaces.
Thank you so much, Andrew. That's helpful. So we've got another question. I'm wondering, Susan Martin, who's on the line, she's our manager of capital projects for the Toronto Public Library. I'm wondering if she'd be willing to come on and address this one. So equal access to community facilities and resources is vital to the educational development of children. And yet many times community programs and activities are not appropriately adapted for children with disabilities. How can public library spaces and programs be adapted to become more accessible for children with special needs? And there are some examples such as quiet and safe spaces, barrier removal, collection, staff training.
That's a really great question as well. And again, I think the answer is partly in the question where I think consultation will be key. When we build out our Kids Stops, our early literacy centers, we work with a firm that is very cognizant of space requirements, but you bring up a really interesting point, and one that we haven't implemented yet around sensory requirements as well. But I would think targeted, focused consultation around this issue would be really vital. There's a lot of libraries that have introduced these sensory rooms or limited sensory access. I think it'd be a really cool and interesting thing to explore. And I think we're hoping with the size of the library we're going to end up with at 20,000 square feet, we're going to have the space to be able to explore a bunch of different things. But it's a really good point. I appreciate you raising it. And we'll definitely, when we engage with our targeted consultation around children's services and areas, we'll be asking those questions. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you so much, Susan. And we've got two other questions that are kind of connected, so I'm going to try to connect them here. So one of them is, can community members anticipate both hardware and software conducive to modern multimedia needs? So that would be creating and editing files, creating graphics, and the like. And then separate but related is a question in the chat that just popped up. Is there sufficient space for a youth hub, a children's area, computer hubs, technology hubs, and how many can we expect? So I'll kick things off with a little bit about the type of technology. And then I'm wondering, Susan, if you're still on the line, maybe you could help with the second part of the question around how many spaces we can expect and the process around how that's determined. So to answer in terms of hardware and software, I mentioned previously that some of our existing digital innovation hubs have exactly this, the type of creative cloud software that helps create graphics, that is industry standard, and that is actually kind of out of reach for a lot of folks due to cost. So that's the kind of, so those sorts of software, like creative design software, that's something that exists in digital innovation hubs and other branches, and we can pull from and get inspired by and do the same if the community through consultation identifies that as a strong need. And in addition to that, there's things like green screen technology, there's 3D printing, 3D modeling. So it really takes it from the graphic and the software based work that can be expanded to a lot of different creative resources. And we even have fabrication studios at North York Central, for example, that have a suite of sewing, a kit of sewing machines. So there's just so much opportunity, and through the consultation, we'll hear about what you would like to see, and we'll incorporate all of that into the design. So Susan, what do you think? Could you add a little bit here around how we balance the number of spaces in a building and how that may be the process for how that may be determined?
Well, I certainly will answer a little bit of it, and then I will bounce it to Eladia and Andrew. But we have experience with certainly the kinds of spaces that we've implemented, and we give lots of information to the architectural team when we start working with it. So we tell them, we need about 600 square feet to have a good youth hub, and it's got to have all these characteristics. We work a lot and talk to the architects a lot about adjacency and what kind of things can go together. But I would say the most important thing is flexible spaces, flex spaces that can be one thing at one part of the day and something else entirely at a different part of the day. But I'm gonna lob this ball at Aledia and Andrew, and it really, honestly, I'm a librarian. I have the opportunity to work on all the capital projects. It really is the art of the architect to work magic and bring the ideas that we have and the activities that we want to do, and they're the ones that really give us the spaces that allow us to do it. So there, you guys have been set up. So off.
Lady, do you want to take it first?
Sure, we've been talking a lot about the types of activities anticipated in the spaces, and that's something that we want to hear from you, the neighborhood who's going to use these spaces. What do you need in your library? So of course, TPL has amazing information and takes very careful note of all of the successful spaces and the successful ways to host activities that support their neighborhoods across Toronto. And so they've shared this with us. And so we have that basis to work from, but also we want to hear from you, which activities you would love to have in a library, perhaps some that we haven't seen before. And so we want to make sure that those are possible. For instance, just as an example, we're really working hard to make sure that we have a space that invites people to meet in a circle, and that space is directly adjacent to a vegetated outdoor area, so that we can have some traditional activities that people could enjoy, regardless if you're of Indigenous heritage or not. It would be a really special thing to do, artisanal works, or learning with one's hands. It's a way of knowledge sharing that is very accessible, as Fred Martin had mentioned. It's really accessible regardless of differing abilities, and really attractive for kids. So being able to build those spaces in early means that they'll continue to grow and reveal even more opportunities as time goes on.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, Aledia, when we visit TPL's various branches, and and TPL's really proud of their branches. They always show us the way different architects came up with different sort of solutions or responses to what on a program sheet might have looked like the same thing. It might have said youth area, but just the variety of responses. And I think the site and the context really provide a lot of potential, what the community wants, but also, where's the sun? What are the views? Where do I get daylight from? Where is it noisy? Where's it quiet? All of those features really begin to shape the spaces as well.
Thanks so much to everyone for contributing to that. So another question, a lot of people use the library's Wi-Fi after hours. Will there be exterior protection from the weather and charging stations available to them? So perhaps, Andrew, could you speak a little bit to this, or anyone else on the call that would like to jump on?
Well, I guess if the question's about use after hours or outdoor use, I mean, I think we're really we're really looking forward to optimizing how much outdoor, how much the library can kind of offer programming outdoors. And we're really in the early days, but just in our initial explorations, we're seeing at least 2, if not 3 opportunities for roof terraces or outdoor forecourt or small garden in behind. So the idea that the library kind of is there as a enhancement of the public realm is definitely in our thinking, and that can certainly be the case after hours. Susan, you'd have to answer as to whether the Wi-Fi will be on and available for people when the library is closed. But we can certainly look at the providing it so that it works in the day and in terms of charging as well. But I don't know, will your Wi-Fi be on after hours for people to engage with?
Yes, it will. Yes, it currently Wi-Fi after hours. When we were closed, that was an example of the way that the library, that folks really saw the library as the place where they got their technology and they owned their
Right.
lifeline. Really, there we just saw crowds of folks hanging around our branches after hours accessing
Excellent.
the
Excellent.
Wi-Fi. Yeah, so we'll definitely keep that
So
on.
we're definitely planning some sheltered, great outdoor spaces right off the main street and then at upper levels as well.
So I'll just read another question from the chat. So should have added special needs adults accessibility as well. So there's an individual who's asking about, so Fred, it's Fred. Hi, Fred. You're asking about, what type of programming and spaces would be available for those individuals, and ensuring that those individuals are part of the focus groups that we touch on. I'm sure will be an important part of how we hear more about those needs. Sorry, I said it was a question, but it was more comment. So Fred will make note of that for sure, and we will definitely follow up. But I did want to. Okay, so here's another one that I didn't want us to miss. So this one probably again for Andrew and Eladia. So does the use of wood in libraries create any insurance issues due to fire risk? I know you guys have built a lot of beautiful structures using a lot of wood. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the answer is no, as long as it is a code compliant building. And and that would include an alternative solution, as long as it's been approved by the city as a safe building in terms of fire codes, there's no problem. And heavy timber buildings, when we use wood, we're not using 2x4s, we're using larger members, and those have proven through testing to be really resilient to fire, because the outside chars creates a protective coating and allows the building to stand for longer than most steel buildings. It's just there's a kind of generic or general anxiety about wood because, you light a match, it's made of wood, it burns. But actually, the science behind it shows that wood can be very resilient and very safe in the case of fire. And so we would definitely be designing this to be compliant with all the codes, and to be free of any kind of undue or extraordinary risk compared to other structures.
Thank you so much, Andrew. That was a really helpful and technical answer to it. So as Mo mentioned in the chat, it's just phenomenal, the response and the level of questions that you're sending our way. And we certainly won't be able to get to all of them today, but we're making note of everything and it'll help inform our future consultations, and we'll be sure to follow up on all of this. But we did want to point out that a trend in the questions was around when this project will start, how long the project will last. And you might have noticed in the chat, we did mention that with construction projects of this type, we have alternate service plans in place so that these resources are still available at an alternate site temporarily in the community. So you can stay tuned for information on that. But I did want to pass it over to Mo and John, or I think Mo, who is going to talk about a bit about the timeline and next steps. I think John will join you as well, but you're both welcome
Sure,
to talk
John,
about this.
jump in.
Thank
I was
you.
just in the middle of typing a quick little note to everybody. I just want to say I'm really excited. I mean, I won't get into my life, but this is like quite a highlight for my week to be able to really engage the community. And I just want you, before we even get to this, I just want you to just everybody close your eyes and think into winter of 2025 when we reopen this beautiful, gorgeous facility, and we're past the pandemic, so all of what we're dealing with now is behind us. And you will have an incredibly beautiful library and community hub to enjoy. And we really, really look forward to, giving you back this library. And as Pam mentioned, we're looking at and we're actively looking at and working on an alternate service plan. So looking to really be able to kind of continue service within the community while we're closed for construction. And just as the chart shows, I mean, this is the kickoff. As we've said, this is the beginning of the actual process, the consultation process. It is really honestly just the start. We've got an incredibly long list of community organizations, groups, tenants, community members, various demographics that we're looking to reach out to connect with, to get feedback on, and just, as we work through the process, confirm that we're actually giving you what you really want. And so once we kind of get through that feedback and incorporate it into the design, we turn that over to the city for approval. So there's an approval process that we have to go through where we get, site plan approvals and, they ensure we're meeting building code and, all the questions around the safety of the building, and having it be to code from all the different perspectives. So we'll work through that process, and then our fabulous architects will draw up the final construction drawings. What we will do is come back to you. So we'll have another open house at some point once we've got some designs that we can actually show you. So it'll be close to final, but it'll be, giving you back a look at what we've managed to bring together for you with respect to the look, the feel, the various areas within the library that we're going to be able to provide, and the community hub, of course. So you'll get another crack at seeing what's there. And then in terms of the process, so once we get the building permits, we'll be looking to hire the architect in late 2022. And then as I put in the notes, it's approximately an 18 to 24 month process to get the building, basically to demolish what's on site and then to get the building built. So we're working as quickly as we can. We all recognize this has been a very long process in the making for the community. And we're going to be working very, very hard to make sure that we can turn this back to the community as soon as we can. So, jump through all the hoops we need to jump through, but return to a beautiful, gorgeous facility that you can enjoy. Is there another slide?
There's one more slide. Next slide,
Maybe.
please.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There we go. So I kind of actually mentioned this over the last slide, but as I said, this is just the start of the consultation. We will be coming back to you, and if you have, write down drstaff@tpl.ca or go to our website. The flyer that we sent out points you to the site where we will actually continue to update information. So there's actually a specific site or a specific page on our website that will update you on this process, the actual construction process. But if you'd like to be a part of future consultation processes, and as I said, we've got a very extensive list of individuals that and organizations and groups that we're going to be connecting with. There will be, one-on-one consultations. We'll do focus groups. So our process is quite extensive, and I know SDFA. We'll be working together with SDFA. Sorry, John, I keep forgetting to mention. Jump in and talk over me if you need to. But we will be working with our partners at SDFA. So the consultation process will actually be TPL and SDFA working together as we kind of work through this process and hear back from you. And again, as I mentioned, we'll host another open house, and you'll get to see the beautiful design that our incredible architects are going to turn back to you. And again, very excited to be able to work with the community on this, and promise you'll have a beautiful, gorgeous library to enjoy in 2025. It sounds like a far time away, but we will do our best to move it along as quickly as we can.
I'm sure it'll be here in no time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mo and Pam, I just wanted to highlight two things and two great learnings for me that bring a lot of excitement in this experience here tonight. The first is just seeing the level of participation in the chat, the questions, the comments, and this is just an indication, a small indication of more to come through this process. And the second is just seeing the fantastic opportunities is from a visual, from a historic, from just a design process and how it incorporates the history, how it incorporates and refers to the learnings from the past. And I think that this is going to be a fantastic journey for all of us. We're not about in SDFA for any reason to walk through a cookie cutter process. Each process is got to be unique, and it's got to be meaningful. And it's really exciting to see this level of participation at the kickoff, and hope to build on that with all the stages and the phases and the learning, because it's really important that I think that residents and community partners understand the whole picture, and you've outlined the whole process, and for us to support, and we're really interested in supporting more learning about not only design, but the civic sort of process and decision-making process, so everyone understands all the components that go into the development of this community asset. And then from there, maintaining it and building on that. So it's been an exciting night for me. And I'll throw it back to you, Pam.
That's great. Thank you so much, John and Mo. So with our meeting coming to a close, I'd just like to echo what we've heard and extend a huge thank you on behalf of the project team to everyone who joined us tonight. This has been just a tremendous start to the conversation. And again, just to reiterate, the beginning of many more opportunities for you to engage with the project. So we're, again, extremely appreciative of your time. We know that this is a lot of time for you to devote to this, so we appreciate it. And hope you found this interesting and that you'll, again, make note of that email address. And I also added 2 links in the chat for you to copy, and you can stay up to date through the renovation page or through the Dawes Road page, where we'll link back to our renovation updates. So please, we hope you'll be connected and involved in future discussions. And again, thank you, and we'll see you at the next one. Hope you have a good night.
Take care, all, and be safe.